When they first launched on Kickstarter in June of 2022, Bambu Labs showed us a future where easy 3D printing was accessible. Fast forward to today, and Bambu Labs is once again stirring the pot by making easy 3D printing affordable with the new A1 and A1 Mini. Perhaps now, more than ever before, the 3D printing community is growing fast. With that in mind, here are 9 tips for Bambu Lab A1 and A1 Mini owners. Tip number 1, let your build plate cool. I know, it's exciting, and you want to play with your prints as soon as possible, but be patient. It is much easier to get parts off a cool build plate, and a warm build plate means your parts are still warm, and forcing them off could damage the print. Speaking of getting parts off your build plate, tip number 2 is flex that build plate hard. Most modern build plates are a printable surface on a core of spring steel. Spring steel is tough stuff and has a natural desire to return to its shape. While it's technically possible to damage the plate by overflexing it, it's not that likely. When removing parts from your build plate, try to avoid touching the build plate too much, like I'm doing right here, and definitely don't spin your hand around it like this. Your fingers and palms have oils and dirt on them, and this will cause you to have problems with your prints sticking to the bed. If you are having problems with prints sticking, you can try to refresh your plate with some isopropyl alcohol, also called IPA. I would like to give you a demonstration of this, but my IPA is still in one of the boxes I have yet to unpack. It's a simple process though. Just spray your plate down with IPA and wipe it down with a cloth. The IPA concentration doesn't really matter, but I personally use 99%. It will sometimes be necessary to give your plate a deep clean though, and for this you just need hot water and dish soap. After you get through scrubbing it down, let the plate dry, and then maybe refresh it with a little IPA before your next print. Pretty simple. The AMS Lite is compatible with a wide variety of spools, both large and small, as well as cardboard and plastic. But the most important aspect to whether you can use a spool is the diameter of the spool's center hole. Now, the AMS Lite supports spools with hole diameters between 53 and 58 millimeters, which does mean that most spools will work. But you will occasionally find spools with smaller or larger holes. Now, if the hole is too small, you're out of luck. But if it's too big, we can easily make an adapter. Notice this one's too big, but I've conveniently made this adapter to go in here. And now it works. If you'd like an example of how you can easily make this adapter yourself using Bambu Studio Slicer, no CAD, please check out my Christmas special, which I will link in the video description. Tip number 5 is watch your tubes. The PTFE tubes, which connect the AMS to the hot end, are considered a consumable part. They may last a long time, years even, but eventually they will need to be replaced. Some filaments like PLA may take years to cause you any type of problem, but other filaments like glow-in-the-dark PLA can ruin tubes in just a few months. In the most extreme cases, I've seen filament cut its way entirely through the tube. Those same materials which wear out your PTFE tubes will also wear out or even clog your nozzle. So if you plan on printing materials with fillers such as glow-in-the-dark, wood fill, glitter, or carbon fiber, get a hardened steel nozzle and maybe have a spare or two lying around just in case. You can get them by a pack from Bambu, and they're pretty cheap, only a few bucks each. Speaking of changing the nozzle, tip number 7 is this. Your Bambu Lab A1 printer features both quick change nozzles and a nozzle tap bed leveling system. With these two technologies in place, it has never been easier or faster to use different diameter nozzles. 0.4 nozzles are the industry standard, but consider trying a 0.2 nozzle for finer detail or a 0.6 nozzle for faster and stronger prints. This hobby is all about experimentation and having fun, so try different things, learn new stuff, and see what happens. Real quick, guys, before we continue, leave a comment if you have questions, suggestions, or even if you just want to say hi. If you're enjoying this video, smash that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. You can always change your mind later. If you are having trouble getting the end of your filament started in the AMS Lite, there are 2 steps to fix this. First, consider getting a pair of micro wire cutters to cut the end of your filament at an angle. These cutters are inexpensive and can be easily found by searching for filament cutters on Amazon. The second thing you should do is make sure that the first 1.5 inches or so of your filament is straightened. It came off of a curved spool, which means the end is usually curved slightly. Straightening it can go a long way to getting your filament loaded. For the final tip, let's talk about moving the machine. Sometimes you may find it necessary to move your machine from one room to another or even transport it somewhere else entirely. When you do, make sure you disconnect the AMS. Trying to move the 2 things together is just asking for trouble. Now, let's say you only want to take your 3D printer over to a friend's house. My recommendation is just go ahead and disconnect the PTFE tubes right here. But if you need to take both of them, the easier thing to do is disconnect them right here. I did play around with trying to disconnect them right here and then using one of the PTFE tubes and plugging into the top single spool holder mount, but that didn't really work so well. So if you only need to use your machine, just go ahead and disconnect it right here. There's several 3D prints that you can print yourself that'll make it much easier to remove these, and I'll link some of them down in the video description. If you don't have those prints and you're in a hurry, then a pair of tweezers can be used to press down on either side of the tab. Once you press down on the tab, push in slightly on the tube and then lift up. It might take a bit of practice, but you'll get it. Speaking of moving the machine, when you move your AMS, remove the spools of filament. 4 kilograms on this base. The base is not really the sturdiest thing in the world, and I don't recommend trying to see if it will survive bouncing around in your car with 4 kilograms of filament on it. So just go ahead and take them off and avoid any unforeseen damage. And those are my 9 tips for new Bambu A1 owners. I'm also working on a video with tips, tricks, and tools for 3D printing in general, and my top favorite 3D printed upgrades for the Bambu A1. If either of those sound like something you'd be interested in, be sure to subscribe so you can get notified when they release.